Dave Lapham, the Bengals color analyst, was a Super Bowl participant in, was it Super Bowl 16, Dave? And it's my recollection, you got to go to beautiful Pontiac, Michigan. Is that correct?
That's correct, guys. How you doing today?
Doing good, doing good.
Beautiful Pontiac, Michigan, and at that time, so excited to go to the Super Bowl. Would have played it anywhere, and probably maybe one of the last choices in the world might have been Pontiac, Michigan. But we were just glad to be there and playing that game for sure.
What is that week like? What was it like for you guys then? And I mean, from your eyesight, has Super Bowl week changed very much?
Yeah, it's gotten so much. I mean, it's ridiculous now. It's so big. I mean, it was a big deal, but over the years, the Super Bowl has grown to be even more and more of an event. It's almost like a national holiday as such. The National Football League has grown so much since the 1981-82 season. I mean, it is a totally different football game. It's a totally different animal. I mean, it's not a Fortune 500 business. It's a Fortune 50 business, and like you guys were saying, I mean, they've got journalists from all over the world. The international coverage is much different than it was back then, but there was more media than we'd ever seen, that's for sure. And everybody was, in one room. You were assigned tables, and it was a free fall for the media. It was a crazy time for sure.
Do want to ask you about Zach Taylor and waiting on the Rams quarterback coach to become the Bengals' next head coach. But one other thing, because it struck me, we just heard the weather forecast talking about how cold it's going to be on Wednesday. And thinking back to when you guys went to the Super Bowl, you played in, is it still the coldest NFL game ever, that AFC Championship game between the Chargers and the Bengals? I think it was like -10. What are your recollections about that game, and how miserable was it? Or when you're playing and you're out there, do you not even, does the elements, do they eventually go away, or do you feel that the whole game?
I'll have to say I'm from the New England area, so I thought I was used to cold, but when you get that cold, I mean, that was just cruel and unusual, really. I mean, the league came very close to delaying that game, postponing the game, and it was 9 below was the temperature, but with wind chill it was 59 below.
Oh.
Or 58 below, whatever it was something ridiculous like that. Now the Green Bay Packers game, ours was the Freeze Bowl. Theirs was the Ice Bowl. The Ice Bowl was 13 below raw temperature, so it was colder raw temperature-wise, but the wind chill was only like 38 below or something like that. So the wind chill wasn't quite as cold. But Forrest Gregg participated in both. He played in the Ice Bowl and coached in the Freezer Bowl. And one thing I remember is when he got up in front of the team before the game, it was like just like everything with Forrest Gregg, he had instantaneous credibility because the Super Bowl's rings hanging off his fingers, being coached by Vince Lombardi, being called the greatest player Vince Lombardi ever coached, and everything that goes along with it. But when he said, look, I played in a game like this, and we're like, yeah, you did it. So I'm going to tell you, it's going to be like going to the dentist. You don't want to do it, but you got to go get it done. Just do the best you can, get it done. Try to block out the weather conditions and just go out and play. And we tried to take his advice, but they did allow us to put Vaseline on exposed skin. So that's where I didn't want to wear sleeves because I had a guy named Gary Big Hands Johnson who was a great pass rusher, and his big thing was to swat and try to grab cloth. So I didn't want to have extra cloth on my arms, so I was going to try to go sleeveless. And I thought, I can handle this. And because I had Max and Anthony from California, Blair Bush from the state of Washington, and Moon Pie Mike Wilson from Georgia. I'm like, yeah, I'll tell these guys, you go out there, it's like, whoa. And literally, it was like walking into a freezer, but they let us put Vaseline on exposed skin. So I said to the official, I'm not going to only put it on my face, I'm going to put it on my arms, this exposed skin. He goes, yeah, I guess you can, because you're normally not allowed to do that kind of stuff. And
right.
It really helped having that Vaseline on the arms, but I think that helped us because they came out with, sweatshirts and hoodies and ski masks and, hand warmers, and we were just out there with our normal stuff. Really didn't have anything. The only thing I did differently is put a pair of socks on, put plastic bags and another pair of socks, like baggies between my socks on my feet, I knew from experience in the cold in the East, if your feet get cold, you're done.
Yep.
Keep your feet warm, you got a shot, man.
Yeah. It actually was perfect weather for the Bengals, considering your opponent. Getting to play the Chargers in weather like that, that probably was
true.
a real shock to their system.
It was, but we beat them in their place 44-17 during the regular season.
Mm-hmm.
And it was nice and lovely and beautiful temperatures, and we smoked them. So,
yeah.
But yeah, they came from Miami the week before. It was that overtime game, the famous game, Kellen Winslow being carried off the field,
Yep.
Blocking the field goal. So it was, whatever the humidity was down there with heat and humidity. I mean, it was well over probably 100 and whatever degrees difference from Miami to Cincinnati from one week to the next for sure.
Visiting with Bengals analyst Dave Lapham, a participant in Super Bowl 16 with the Bengals. All right, what's the buzz? What's the excitement? I mean, obviously, because of the Rams being this far, we've had to wait a few weeks, but the secret's out that the Bengals have tabbed Zach Taylor, the quarterback coach, to be the new head coach. What's the feeling in Cincinnati about this move?
Yeah, I think that the feeling is that in today's football, you try to make things as easy for the quarterback as you possibly can. It's a quarterback-friendly league. The rules are designed to keep quarterbacks upright and healthy. The NFL wants 66-63 games. They don't want 6-3 games. So it's a quarterback-driven league, and I think the league is basically trying to find guys like the Sean McVays of the world that can make it as easy for the quarterback as possible with respect to schematic and execution of personnel groupings and formations and scheme, and just try to roll up points. And I can honestly say that Zach Taylor, I covered him when he was at Nebraska as a player, and he was playing for Bill Callahan, who's the offensive line coach for the Washington Redskins now, but of course coached the Raiders to the Super Bowl. And he was Player of the Year. I mean, he was no slouch. I mean, he was Offensive Player of the Year in the Big 12, and there were two players that I remember during the course of those years that when they get up on the grease board and started talking about their offense was like, man, this guy's like a little football savant. I mean, these guys are like offensive coordinators. They can install their offense like an offensive coordinator. Zach was one and Major Applewhite was the other down in Texas when we were covering Texas football. And they both got into the coaching business. And I think that, they wanted to go with a young offensive mind as such that can do some things with this talent that they have offensively, and create some mismatches and try to confuse defensive football teams. And of course, the word's out to Brian Callahan. Thanks to Coach Gruden, Brian Callahan has been named the offensive coordinator. He'll be coordinating it with Zach Taylor, and you got a 35-year-old and a 34-year-old. So it's a young it's a young staff. And also, the big rumor is Jack Del Rio is the defensive coordinator, and that's the other thing that's when you look at these young coaches that are head coaches in the NFL, like McVay has Wade Phillips handling his defense, and experienced former head coach in the NFL handling defensive side of it. That's the model with Jack Del Rio. That same type of prototype that works so successfully. So I think some things are falling together, and I think that the offensive line coach will be named. I have a hunch that it's going to be the offensive line coach down at Texas A&M right now. Mm-hmm. This is the third time he's been down there. He's coached with Brian Callahan before. With Zach Taylor before. Zach Taylor, his father-in-law, Mike Sherman, was coaching at Texas A&M and did some Big 12 games when Mike was down there. And Zach was a graduate assistant to his father-in-law. And I think that offensive line coach wouldn't surprise me if he's the guy. And some guys are going to be retained. At this point, for Alex Van Pelt, Bob Bicknell, and Darren Simmons, Durante Jones, Robert Livingston, all these guys still on staff, they must have had some sort of an interview, I would think, with Zach, or at least conversations that Zach feels comfortable enough to keep them around. I don't think they keep them around all this time. And, after the Super Bowl, say, okay, go out and fend for yourself now. Go and try to find a job on all these staffs that, the head coaches have been named and filling their staffs for a while. Dave,
it really is. I mean, it strikes me when you're talking about it. It really is such a copycat league. I know we say that year after year. But 10 years ago, you wouldn't have thought of having coaches this young. But Sean McVay does what he did. And now all of a sudden you have Cliff Kingsbury, who goes to Arizona. You have Zach Taylor. To a degree, what the Browns did with Freddie Kitchens, and the young and hot offensive mind seems to be the way that the NFL is going right now.
It is, but I will say that Sean McVay is a unicorn.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Sean McVay has a photographic memory. Sean McVay can tell you, if you say, all right, Coach, the 30th play of the game, when you were playing the Dallas Cowboys in 2015, you were coordinating for the Washington Redskins, what was the play? He'll tell you.
Yeah.
I mean, it's ridiculous. The guy is one of those rare guys in the population. So you're not gonna get the Sean McVay photographic memory by standing next to him on the sidelines. But you can obviously learn a lot from the guy. But that's what helps him so much. I mean, the guy has instantaneous recall. He'll watch just tons and tons of tape and be able to remember, okay, the Patriots did this when they were playing the Chicago Bears in 2016, and this is what they did, and here's how we're going to adjust. I mean, that's when you get into these guys that are at another level, and Belichick is obviously the best adjustment guy that I think the league has ever seen, and games are all about, at that level, are all about adjustments and adjustments to adjustments. Well, I think Sean McVay's memory has helped him in that regard at such a young age.
All right, Lap, who do you like this weekend, Patriots or Rams?
Well, my heart says Rams. My head tells me Patriots. I'd like to see Andrew Whitworth win a World Championship.
That would be cool. You're right. Yep.
Yeah, there's not a more quality human being that you're ever going to meet than Andrew Whitworth. So
yep.
I'm a big fan of his. I'd love to see that happen for him, but I just have a feeling that the Patriots, they've been there so many times. They have so much experience, been there, done that kind of thing. But I do think it's going to be a really good football game. I hope that it's it's just like the last weekend before this, when both championship games end up going to overtime. It'd be great to have the Super Bowl go into overtime and be decided by a possession.
Yeah, let's hope there's no blown officiating call to make it controversial. But yes.
Right.
Hey, Lap, thanks so much. We love your insight and appreciate you taking a few minutes for us.
No problem, guys. Thanks.